new normal big life.
What if your social media flex is making you lonely? Today, we're exposing virtual signaling and how it's a psyop, a psychological operation driving America's loneliness epidemic. Virtual signaling, it's that loud, look how moral I am post like white women on X saying no more white men. But what is it? It's flexing virtue for likes, not change, and it's trending hard. Is virtual signaling tearing us apart? Experts hint at loneliness epidemic sweeping America and the West. Experts warn of a hidden agenda. Lonely, angry people are easier to manipulate. It's a vulnerability to exploit, says psychologist Dr. Jean Twenge. Could this be intentional? Let's uncover the truth and strategies to fight back without demonizing anyone. Hi friends, welcome to the New Normal Big Life podcast. We bring you natural news and stories about nature that we hope will inspire you to get outside and adventure, along with a step-by-step plan to help you practice what you've learned and create your own new normal and live the biggest life you can dream. I'm your host, Antoinette Lee, the Wellness Warrior. Welcome to today's episode. We're diving into something heavy but so important for the human species and our nation to survive. What if the loudest voices on social media aren't just annoying, they're part of a plot to make you lonely? Picture this. A white woman posts on X, "I'm done dating white men," racking up likes, reposts, and social credit. Angry baby boomers risking their safety and freedom to vandalize someone's vehicle in an attempt to ostracize people they assume voted for one political party or another. Or young people of color who would rather scream about how they've been victimized and are owed reparations rather than becoming part of the American middle class through hard work like the rest of us. These social media posts are bold. It's viral, but it's more than just a flex, don't you think? Welcome to the world of virtual signaling, a trend that's quietly reshaping relationships, mental health, and society in unhealthy and dangerous ways. Let's dive in. So what's virtual signaling anyway? On social media, grabbing attention fast is key. Virtual signaling does just that. It's when someone publicly displays moral superiority, like rejecting an entire race of partners to gain social approval. Using social media videos to bait someone into committing crimes against politicians and law enforcement and other acts of violence to garner attention. Think of it as a peacock strutting its feathers, but instead of beauty, it's righteousness on display. A trending example on X shows white women swearing off white men, claiming it's anti-racist. But is it really? Or is it a signal gone rogue? The Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders, or DSM-5, doesn't directly address hating your own race or gender, but it ties self-rejection to serious issues. Under major depressive disorder, it notes feelings of worthlessness or excessive guilt can spiral from distorted self-perception. Dr. Jonathan Haidt, a social psychologist, warns, when people turn against their own identity, it's a recipe for isolation and despair. A 30-year-old woman, Sarah, shared, "I stopped dating white guys to prove a point. Now I'm just lonely and exhausted." Middle-class parents of color are stunned that their college-educated children now hate them and their parents' money that paid for their college education. Now some of their young adult children have disconnected from their parents and chose to opt out of the middle class until they get reparations. I even had a personal exchange with a young man who felt this way on X recently. I was attempting to encourage him that the middle class is still available to anyone willing to work and sacrifice to have it, using my story as an example. I bought my first house as a single woman at age 32. Today I own my fourth home together with my guy Matt. But young Americans in increasing numbers are convinced they're a victim that needs to disrupt the system to tear it down and build a different one where no one owns more than anyone else within their 15-minute city. So we have white women and middle-class young people of color who've turned against their identity and families for social credit. The DSM-5 links such patterns of behavior to family strain and societal disconnection, amplifying the loneliness epidemic. 5 out of 16 youths at our summer camp for children aged 6 to 16 told me and other camp counselors that they're so depressed and lonely that they've been thinking about ways to kill themselves beginning in 2021. More kids reported that the following year. Social isolation and loneliness have had a devastating impact on Western society. The erosion of community bonds, increased reliance on digital communication, and the breakdown of traditional family structures contribute to widespread loneliness linked to depression and other mental health disorders. Social media exchanges among ordinary people report concerns about superficial social connections and the loneliness epidemic. This loneliness epidemic refers to the widespread feeling of isolation and lack of meaningful social connections, particularly among white men, veterans, law enforcement, and younger and older people. Additionally, research points to loneliness as a significant factor in the mental health crisis. When we come back from this short break, we'll talk about the loneliness stats by age, cohort, and gender, and how it's led to a mental health crisis. World events are constantly teaching everyone some very painful lessons. Without warning, everything we take for granted can suddenly fail. And if you're not prepared in advance, you really don't have a chance. The fact is, the modern world runs on a just-in-time supply schedule. Even the biggest grocery stores can carry only enough food for a few days' worth of normal shopping. So when disaster strikes and chaos ensues at your local stores, the odds are simply against you. If you don't have emergency food and gear stockpiled in advance, you will probably suffer. My partner, Ready Hour, is here to help you ahead of time. Ready Hour has a long history of providing calorie-rich, reliable, and delicious nourishment for life's unexpected situations, and critical emergency gear too. They're part of a family of companies that have served millions of people like you for decades. My family and I use Ready Hour products for camping, mountaineering, and disaster preparedness for 5 years now. They're not just reliable, they're also your affordable option too. Long-term survival food shouldn't break the bank. That's why they have great sales and payment options for you. It's your bridge to safety and survival when things just aren't normal anymore. So make your next decision your smartest decision. Be ready for tomorrow, today. Trust Ready Hour. Ready to shop? Use my affiliate link in the show description. Before we cover the next topic in this episode, I want to introduce you to the adventure sports lifestyle with what I call a micro story about an adventure that I've had. The adventure sports lifestyle and my deep connection to nature is essential to my good health. So here's the story. The power had been out in our Northwoods region for 4 days now. We live in a cabin in the woods, in case you haven't heard me say this before. Matthew looked pale, weak, and hardly able to lift his head. After treating his symptoms from our well-stocked first aid cabinet, I realized we had adequate food and drinking water. Our most immediate need was keeping the fire going in the wood-burning stove and sourcing more non-potable water for toilet flushing. Today's survival chores were my responsibility because Matthew was in a feverish sleep. I loaded the ice fishing sled with buckets of snow that I dumped into the toilet to melt and make flushing water. Next, I hiked across the property through the snow and driving wind to fill the hand cart with wood and stacked it neatly by the back door. Finally, I placed a log into the stove and cooked grits and eggs in cast iron pans on the wood-burning stove's top. We survived another day. I did that. I hope this inspires you to get outside and adventure alone, with friends, or the people you love most. Now back to the loneliness numbers, because they don't lie, folks. Loneliness isn't just a feeling, it's a statistic. According to the U.S. Census Bureau in 2023, 45% of white women aged 25 to 34 are single, up from 35% a decade ago. For white men, it's 38%. And for non-white men, it's 50% are single. Gen Z and millennials lead this shift, with 60% of 18 to 24-year-olds reporting chronic loneliness. Now imagine rejecting half your dating pool based on race. It's math, says sociologist Dr. Eric Kleinberg. Fewer partners mean more isolation. This trend could shrink options further, leaving people stranded. In the upcoming podcast episode, America's Mental Health Crisis, I talk about how loneliness is a contributing factor to the despair and related deaths. Recent surveys show between 2017 and 2019, so many Gen Z youth and millennial adults lost their lives to deaths of despair that the U.S. life expectancy decreased for the first time in 100 years. In addition, according to the CDC, 1 in 5 millennials report having no friends, none at all. 56% of Gen Zers report loneliness in the past 12 months, and 5% of seniors are depressed, according to the National Institute for Family Studies. Loneliness peaks among young adults 18 to 24 and seniors over 65, with different causes. For the young, social media influence and transient lifestyles play roles. For older adults, it's often due to the loss of social networks through retirement or grief. The U.S. tends to have higher loneliness rates than many European countries where social ties and community structures are stronger. Mental health researcher Dr. Nicholas Kardaras, among others, has linked the rise in depression to the widespread use of technology and social media, suggesting that these tools, while connecting us globally, often lead to superficial interactions and a lack of deep, meaningful relationships. That's why I make an effort when I'm communicating on social media with people who follow me and veteran groups and other groups that I'm a part of, is that I take the time to make an effort to really get to know people and form meaningful connections and make true friends online. After this short break, we'll talk about the loneliness psychological operation, or the loneliness psyop. Is there a psyop to increase loneliness at play? Here's where it gets dark. What if this isn't random? What if virtual signaling is a psychological operation, a psyop to divide us? Loneliness makes people vulnerable, says Dr. Jean Twenge, author of iGen. Twenge says angry, isolated individuals are easier to control politically, economically, you name it. A divided society fights itself, not the puppet masters. Nefarious vulnerabilities? I think so. Think radicalization, consumerism, mimicking destructive behaviors, or blind obedience to a cause. History shows it. Lonely people join cults, buy more stuff, commit crimes, and vote out of spite in response to loneliness. Think about it. You create the conditions where people feel lonely and isolated while longing for connection and to be part of something bigger than themselves. Then someone or some group says, you can join us. Is someone or something banking on that? The answer is yes. As virtual signaling has led to attacks on personal property, doxing, and the attempted murder of ICE and other law enforcement agents, and rampant violent protests requiring military intervention to stop the destruction, the U.S. and much of the Western world have become perilously close to civil war, race war, cultural war, and other types of all-out violence which could cause governments to take away freedoms to so-called stop the violence. But many think this is the ultimate plan to usher in a one world government rather than a republic like we have it here in America. Can you fight for what you believe without hate and loneliness? Sure you can. It begs the question, how do you dislike the behavior without torching entire groups? First, call it out specifically. I hate virtual signaling, not white men, says Mia, a 28-year-old Texas woman. Second, focus on actions, not identities. The identity politics that ramped up since 2018 got Americans to announce their various identities and then villainize people who identify differently or who don't profess to being an ally. Criticize the posturing, not the person's race or gender, experts say. Third, build bridges. Talk to people you disagree with, advises therapist Esther Perel. Connection kills division. It's not about demonizing, it's about dismantling the game. When you take the time to talk to someone from a different walk of life or who holds a different opinion, when you get past the rhetoric, you often notice that you have more in common than you think. Now, here's the takeaway. Virtual signaling might feel righteous, but it's a loneliness trap. It's dividing us humans, shrinking our worlds, and maybe, just maybe, someone wants it that way. Don't buy the hype. Reject the script. Connect instead. Agree to disagree. Your sanity, society, and humanity depend on it. Until next time, friends, I'm Antoinette Lee, your wellness warrior here at the New Normal Big Life podcast. I hope one day to see you on the river, in the backcountry, or in the horse barn living your best life. Tag New Normal Big Life on social media at NNBL blog on X and celebrate so we can celebrate your good health and big life. If you're a visual learner, you can watch an informative and entertaining version of this video on YouTube at New Normal Big Life channel coming soon, or listen wherever you get your podcasts. Share this episode with someone who needs it. Comment on posts and drop us a message or email. Nothing personal or too specific. When you have a health or adventure sports topic you want us to cover, and share this and support for others in this community. Since 2012, the Health Ranger store has been answering your calls for a trustworthy, responsive, and affordable source of health-focused products. Built from scratch with its own US-based fulfillment center and dedicated in-house customer support, they've got you covered. From nutritional supplements and superfoods to storable foods and preparedness gear, they offer competitive prices on top-quality, lab-tested items. I'm excited to partner with the Health Ranger store to bring you the purest, most reliable products out there. Ready to shop? Use my affiliate link to get started.
New